There was still an unresolved issue in the west. All supplies went into the occupied Belgium via a single railway which was within the firing range of French and British artillery. Attempts were made to push the Entente forces further south, but trench warfare made that impossible. Then, General Falkenhayn proposed starting a new front to resolve the problem: invading the Netherlands. Despite the fact that the only way Germany could import needed supplies and food was through the neutral ports of this country, the OHL saw no other way to expand the supply lines to Belgium. Emboldened by the success of this operation, Falkenhayn proposed to do the same with the imported tungsten from the neutral Sweden. Despite it now being the winter season, the capitulation of Sweden and Finland now being vulnerable, the German army in the east was inspired to commence a large-scale offensive across the whole front. With the mounting losses and the Tsarist army continuously getting pushed back, the autocracy was overthrown. The offensive continued into the next year, culminating in the fall of Petrograd. At this critical moment for the Russians, the Bolsheviks couped the government. Now the Russian army was no longer any factor. The Bolsheviks had no other option but to agree to a peace on German terms in the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk. In light of the total success of Falkenhayn's gambit, he was promoted to Field Marshal and put in charge of the forces in the west and tasked with preparing one great offensive that should bring ultimate victory to the Kaiserreich. With the east secured along with the bountiful resources of Ukraine, German leadership decided that now is the best time to complete their northern campaign and occupy Norway. However, this time experienced generals like Hindenburg were against such an idea, saying that the supply situation does not allow for any offensive action in the north. But such concerns fell on deaf ears, as Falkenhayn's ideas became dominant in the German army. Christiania was occupied within the first days of fighting, but after that, all German momentum had vanished because of the poor supplies so far up north, as Hindenburg warned. All preparations for a great offensive were finalized, but the German army had to contend with a new problem. The constant fighting in the east and the north drained the stockpiles of even the most basic armaments, creating a massive deficit in both the rifles and artillery. To negate this, it was decided to reduce the front line in the north and disband some divisions. Attempts to occupy all of Scandinavia were completely abandoned. The opening salvos of the Western Offensive were fired in May of 1918 with a shaping operation, a test offensive on the French town of Maubeuge. The attack was a success. In June, the offensive officially began. The German army unleashed a storm of steel upon the enemy. But by September, it became clear that the willpower won't be enough to break through the Entente lines. The successes of the first stage of the attack were underwhelming. The second stage had seen the German army completely occupy Belgium and even reach the town of Cambrai by late January of 1919.
Lasst sie nicht durch!
Non-stop British and French counterattacks, however, completely halted the offensive. No matter how many troops the Germans threw at Lille, time after time the French were able to hold the Germans back. The Battle for the Somme would be the last success the German army would see on the Western Front. On other fronts, the Austrian Empire and its army completely fell apart. German leadership completely lost all faith in winning the war. In an attempt to salvage the situation, in summer of 1919, German generals decided for a major offensive deep into Italy in an attempt to reach southern France to split the attention of the French army. The offensive reached as far as Venice, but it was still not enough to kick Italy out of the war. Meanwhile, in the west, the exhausted German army was no longer able to resist the enemy. The fresh American divisions inspired the Entente leadership to start their own offensive actions, breaking through the defenses along the pre-war Franco-German border. By September, all of Belgium was liberated from German occupation. Seeing the rapidly collapsing situation, German leadership ordered a general retreat and for the German army to hold positions along the Rhine River from the Swiss border to the coast of the occupied Netherlands. Despite the army's best efforts, the Entente powers landed in the Baltics and were marching into Germany through occupied Denmark. It was now crystal clear. It was all over. The army is no longer able to defend the German fatherland's frontiers. Soldiers were tired and running out of ammunition faster than the factories could produce them. On October 3rd of 1919, Ludendorff handed the reins of power to the civilian government, which was quick to beg for a ceasefire with the Entente. The armistice was signed in Compiègne. The war was over. Germany lost, with all efforts having now been made irrelevant and for nothing. The emperor abdicated. Germany was now a republic. After the Treaty of Versailles was finalized in January of 1920, the country was thrown into chaos. The soldiers returning from the fronts formed right-wing paramilitary groups. The establishment right attempted a putsch, led by Kapp, but failed. The workers in the Ruhr tried to rebel, but the newly formed Reichswehr put down the revolt. The empire died with a whimper. The republic was born in blood, now facing an uncertain future with jaded workers, disgruntled veterans, and rising far-right revanchism. Only God knows what the future holds for Germany.